Aaron Tuttle here for Ferguson Roof Systems. For 43 years, Ferguson Roof Systems has been protecting Oklahoma's homes and businesses with quality roofing services. Their goal was to be the most honest and dependable roofing company in the state, all while providing free services such as lifetime labor warranty and annual inspections. Well, mission accomplished with thousands of client testimonials, an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, and a 5-star rating on Google. Look, the weather gives you enough to worry about, so why worry about who to trust with your roof? Call Ferguson Roof Systems today or find out more at fergusonroofsystems.com.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle here with you. We are going to spend the next, just unlimited number of time here to talk about the hurricane. So I'm going to give you the update on what's happening, where it is, where it's heading, where it's going to make official landfall, how strong is it, who is it going to affect, what are we looking at as far as damage goes. We'll just sit here and hang back, and I'll kind of cover everything live for you. So we'll get a lot of the details, we'll get a lot of the kind of the technical nerdy stuff some of you might really geek into. I'll also start out with some very simple layman's terms too. So we cover it all here, and we've got some time. And it's a pretty monumental event. So the way it looks right now, this is most likely the strongest hurricane ever in the Gulf of Mexico. Secondly, it may be the strongest ever hurricane to hit the Louisiana coastline. The last storm that came very close to this, I think it was in the 1800s. Our measurement abilities way back then, obviously not what they are today, so there's always going to be a caveat there, but as far as records go, that's how far back we have to go to see something of this strength and this magnitude hitting the shoreline. Of course, since then, you factor in 100+ years of human development and construction and population expansion, all that kind of stuff, and it is an entirely different animal. Back then they couldn't defend for hurricanes. Guess what? Today, we still can't defend from a hurricane. All you can do is leave the area. Back then they didn't have that, heads up to leave. Today's day and age you do. Sometimes when you say leave, you get people yelling at you saying you can't tell everybody to leave, it'll cause a traffic jam. Well, you know what? It's one of those deals where you can let hurricane decide your fate, or you take it in your own hands. And that's going to be up to you. It's a personal decision. My goal is to tell you as early as possible the threat, try to make it as most accurate as I can, and then let the chips fall where they may, and you have to make a decision based off of that, just like I would. So in other words, if I'm in that area and I see what's coming my way, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge, and I'm doing it fast before everybody else does. It's I'm going to give you a very simplified oversimplification, just so you can get some critical thinking and get into that survival mode. I'm going to, think of the Titanic, right? You're on a boat, and I'm going to tell you, in 48 hours it's going to hit an iceberg. It's not looking good. What happens after that? Everybody needs to evacuate off the ship. And then somebody says, you can't evacuate 5,000 people. This is just a hypothetical. And you say there's only 10 lifeboats or 100 lifeboats. And therefore, those 100 lifeboats can't be used to evacuate people. They can't leave because if you have everybody leave, it'll cause a problem because there's not enough lifeboats. Well, those that want a self-preservation and survival will take the heed of the experts and get on a lifeboat, and then the ones that stay by and virtue signal at how it's not fair because no one else can get on a lifeboat, well, then they go down with the ship. So I'm not saying there's a good way or a bad way with that. One way you survive, the other way you don't. One way may be morally better than the other. It's a convoluted mess. It's not going to be clean. So there's never a good answer for any of this stuff, is what I'm trying to say. So what I do is I present to you the information. From that point, you have to make a personal decision what to do with it. So down on the coast, I thought anywhere from Houston eastward needs to evacuate. And luckily the storm kind of dodged just to the east. So it looks like it's going to be making landfall pretty much close to the Texas and Louisiana border. So that puts Houston in the far western fringe of it, which should be okay for you guys. But what you're going to see and the end result of this hurricane come tomorrow morning when you start to get all those pictures coming out from the storm chasers, you get the media involved, drone shots, helicopter shots, whatever it may be. The devastation you're going to see that's going to happen east of Houston. If you shift that 60 miles west, then you can transplant that scenario to Houston. And that's why you can say I was worried and concerned. I know there's several million people in Houston, but I also know that every life is precious, and you should give them an opportunity to leave if you want, if they want to. So that's my take on it. So I got a lot of heat from that, a lot of flack from that, but my goal is to save lives. My goal is not to be a politician. My goal is not to say what's fair, what's not fair. My goal is to say survival of the fittest. I'm going to give you the best information I got, and what you decide to do with it is up to you. So that's how I'm going to introduce this so we can get started to the data. I want to kind of let the groundwork of where I've been, what I'm thinking, and how I kind of approach these things. That's just my personal way to do things. You may disagree, which is fine. We don't have to agree with everything everybody else says. Just know that it comes from a place where I'm trying to help people versus doing harm. All right, so I just want to get that out of the way. Okay, so let's move on. So again, thanks for joining me. Make sure you tell your friends and family about this video, especially for those that are interested right now in what's going on with the hurricane. So text them, get on Facebook and message them, or just share the video. And before I get started, also, if they don't have my weather app, a lot of you Oklahomans, you got it because you're smart. You go, I know what happens when tornadoes happen. I know to get out of Dodge, right, or protect myself, one or the other. So my app will do that for them for the hurricanes. It does work down there along the coast. It does the same thing it does here. It predicts the tornadoes that the hurricane will spawn, give them more time to prepare, more time to seek shelter, more time to find their safe place before the official warnings come out. And in hurricanes, they can pop up pretty quickly. So you're going to need that extra technology. So if you're new here and you're watching for the first time, it's called AT's Weather to Go. So you can go to Apple or Google Play and just search AT's Weather, and it should find it for you. And then load that on your phone, and you're going to be protected. All right. So, and that's anywhere in the path of the hurricane. That's not just along the coastline where a lot of people evacuated, hopefully. That's going to be far inland, and I'll show you that as well. So without further ado, let's get on to the situation at hand. And I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you tonight. There's really no rhyme or reason. I'm just going to kind of just follow whatever I feel like popping up. So the first thing to kind of get you acclimated, this is a look at the storm on radar that is off the coastline. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center that came in around 7 o'clock for this update had a central pressure of 937 millibars. That is very low. Maximum wind of 150 miles per hour. I did see a report of 153. Technically, you have to have 157, I believe it is, for a Category 5 hurricane. So this is the strongest end of a Category 4 hurricane you can get. There is some indication that it's going to strengthen to a Category 5, at least briefly, as it works its way toward shore here the next few hours. And again, if so, that would be the strongest hurricane ever hit the Louisiana shoreline. So don't get bogged down too much in whether or not we just barely missed the Category 5 designation point, because the outcome is going to be the same regardless. At this level, it's just not going to be good. All right, so let me move on to... let's do this right here. Also, we're mentioning here from the National Hurricane Center, the mention of tornadoes in the outer bands across southern Louisiana and extreme Mississippi. So we're going to talk about that as well. With a hurricane, you get a lot of threats. You get the storm surge from seas that were churned up at 70 feet, which come on shore probably around 10 to 15, maybe sometimes 20 feet. That causes inland flooding for miles and miles and miles up the coast. And then, of course, you've got the winds itself, which are sustained around 120, 130, gusts up to 150. Some models are trying to gust winds up over 180 miles per hour. Again, these are like tornado-type situations, but on a very widespread area. You've got, of course, the heavy rains. You get some potential flash flooding with that. Let's see. So it's just a powerful storm. All right, so let's take a look at the water vapor channel first. This is a satellite viewpoint. And what I want to show you here is a neat feature for us, for Oklahoma, by the way. Remember how I told you there's an upper level low that's going to work its way out of, I told you to be in the southern area of Texas and work its way northeast by Wednesday today, and then give us some scattered showers and storms. That's exactly what happened. Now, I know there were some forecasts saying it was the moisture that surged in here from the hurricane that gave us the rain. That's a bunch of garbage. It was the upper level lows, actually kind of more of a Tuttle low is what I kind of called it, but it was a deep subtropical or upper. It might have been subtropical. I didn't take the original location of it. I picked it up and it was in Texas. I was busy prior to that. But regardless, it was an area of low pressure in the atmosphere, which causes lift and squeezes out moisture. And so this enhanced blue color on the map, those are all clouds associated with showers and storms that formed here. Some moved through Oklahoma City, and then you can see some elsewhere down south and east. And actually, interesting out of this, you see this little gravity wave right here? This is just an interesting fact I picked up on just now. See that kind of surges out? It's a gravity wave, probably in a mid-level aspect of it, but it's gone pretty far south. It might be a little bit of a bore, what we call an undular bore. Just kind of a neat little feature. Sometimes comes out of convection or synoptic patterns of the jet stream. So the other thing I want to bring your attention to is what happens is, of course, you got the low there. Let's see here. And you're going to have a region of high pressure, which is behind my head. So I'll place it here just to make things, simplified. And then what happens is between the two, you get the airflow that flows clockwise around a high, like this. And then for the low, you get the air that flows counterclockwise, like this. So when I talked about that forecast, I think we did a Facebook Live on Sunday, was it? And I talked about the channel, how you're going to have this low to the west and the high to the east, and in between is going to be this channel that's going to feed the hurricane too. So that's exactly what's happening here. The flying ointment was, where's the exact position by the time this period in time happens? Where's the high in position with that? Therefore, where's the channel? Does it set up kind of at the east of the border of the state of Texas? Does it head up to the west of the border? That model struggled with that, of course, as always, because we're trying to narrow down a 200-mile length of coastline into about a 1-mile point. And, of course, that's just not feasible. The hurricane itself is 150, sometimes 200 miles wide. So trying to narrow that down to a 1-mile spot, it's not possible, but we still try to do our best, at least give you the centroid part of the storm to kind of help see who's going to see the most damage out of it. So anyway, that is a look at kind of how things are going in the satellite viewpoint as far as what's helping to guide the storm to where it is concerned, or where it is now. If you look at the storm now, let's see, let's zoom in. Let's do we'll do this guy here. Where are we? There we go. This is a mesoscale floater, we call it. In other words, the satellite positions itself over the storm, does a hyper zoom, and then does a 1-minute update. So these 1-minute updates are actually sometimes faster than radar scans from a surface-based radar system. But regardless, this is the hurricane. You can see a very concentric eye wall. But they're starting to get, they call it kind of octagonal. You start to get these little vorticity nubs that come into each one of these. Usually what that indicates, it's just down the last few frames, that indicates continual strengthening. So it's not weakening as it comes into land. It's still slightly strengthening, which is why it might likely hit Category 5 just before it hits landfall. It's still got a couple hours to go before that happens, but you can see how it's getting closer and closer. All right, so where is this thing going? That's the million-dollar question, right? You just kind of want to know, all right, give me your best stab at it. So if we take a look, this is the radar view out of Lake Charles. This is from the NextStat. Now this is the center of the hurricane. So what I did is I took it back about an hour or so, and I plotted the centroid of where the hurricane was, this little dot, and it was very scientific, and I applied the red dot where it is currently. All right, so what that does is, assuming that the hurricane continues on its same track, and it's not going to deviate any, it's not going to wobble too much, and it shouldn't in its current configuration, we can, of course, connect the dots and draw the line, and that takes it here to the southwest sides of Louisiana. So it does keep it east of the Texas state line, and that would put it over here just west of Cameron, so east of Sabine Pass. So, of course, I'll be crossing over, I was at Highway 82, and looks like Highway 27, kind of just on the west of that intersection. Probably most likely area for the landfall. So let's put it west of Holly Beach is probably the best guess. Now, keep in mind this eye wall, last I had looked before, was about 30 miles wide. Let me do another quick check on that. Let's see, let's remove the marker. I'll place the marker here, and then measure from the marker. Yeah. All right, that is going to be about 30 miles. So this eye wall is 30 miles wide. So that's what I'm saying. You're trying to pick a point on the map. You can see how me picking one point, which is literally a speck on the map of not even a mile, we're talking a feet, literally, It doesn't matter when you're talking about something that's 30 miles wide, and that's not even the width of the most dangerous winds. That's just kind of just the good central part of the column. I would have to extend this even farther outward to capture all of the hurricane force winds. And to kind of get an idea of that, that's what this map was showing here. The, let's see, this little pink circle. That's kind of the radius of the hurricane force winds. So it kind of gives you an idea of how much farther they go out from the center. Now also what you can see on this map is these little red boxes, little triangle boxes. All right, so what does that say? It says tornado radar indicated. So this is an example where you have a band, a tropical band with these hurricanes. So this band right here rotates from the southeast to the northwest, and all these little higher end reflectivity notches, these little eddies, each one of those can sometimes produce tornadoes. And that's why they have just a huge box that just encompasses the whole band. Because at any point in time, you can get one of those to spin up. Now we can take a quick look just to see on this radar view if we can make any of those out. I may have to use a different system. Let's see. Yeah, it's a good one. So what you can faintly see on this indication are these little eddies here. And these aren't typical tornado signatures on this. It's going to be harder to see because the frequency of the radar and the distance from the radar. With a higher resolution and a different wavelength radar, we'll be able to pick those out a little bit better. We can pull in one of those radars once that happens. It gets closer to shore. But let's see. Let's take a look at this one, and we'll see if we can't pick them out on here. So yeah, there we go. We can pick them out a little bit better here. Just the color scale is just a little different. So in that particular case, area of interest 1, 2. There's likely going to be folded over one here. So these would be little, kind of we'll call them small or baby tornadoes that would move through along this line and just kind of rotate from southeast to northwest. So this is why you'd want my weather app, AT's Weather to Go, because it'll warn you of these little eddies and give you a twisting storm alert as they approach you. So you'll be able to get plenty of heads up that one's coming your way. So if you live in that area, that's what would happen. Hopefully no one's along the coastline. If anyone's along the coast, other than emergency management and certain personnel, they got their life in their own hands because the storm surge is going to clear it out. And remember, you're 5 feet tall. You got a wall of water coming that's 15 feet tall. You're gone. You're out to sea. So that's why they clear the coastline. Let's see. Okay. Also, let's go back to this map here. How strong are those winds as far as radar estimations go? And we can sometimes get an idea when the data's clean enough. So I've seen a lot of, earlier I was picking out a lot of winds up around 130 to 140 miles per hour. Let's see, on this side, we're going to have some garbled noise in here, 143. So each scan comes in a little bit different. The radar goes through a lot of different modes to try to clean it up. It's so far away and there's a lot of turbulence and it's just difficult. So every now and then you get a clean sweep, we can get a good measurement of the radar data. So for example, this particular radar view, each of these colors represent a color palette. So the color palette's over here on the left, right? So it goes from like red, and there's blue, and then back to blue, back to red. So what happens is these colors actually fold over. So it's called folding, and you have to unfold the colors to be able to actually read the max data. And on the fly, that's difficult to do. A lot of times, as long as it's within the Doppler's Nyquist velocity, it'll do it for you. So the other radar was showing you, that's what that one is giving me. Here, it'll give me the maximum output of what it's detecting without some of this unfolding. It's about 114 miles per hour. And also, this keep in mind, these winds that we talk about, they're elevated. So this is up around, let's see, where are we now? The storm, height-wise, 7,000 feet. We're starting to detect the wind speeds around 7,000 feet. So as it gets closer to shore, the radar beam will sample that hurricane from, instead of being up here, because the radar beam goes up with height because of the curvature of the earth. As that storm gets closer, the radar beam, instead of measuring at 7,000, it'll be 5,000, then 4,000, then 3,000, then 2,000. And we're going to be able to get a better measurement of how much those winds are actually transferring down the surface. And those would be the Doppler radar estimates that we have for the hurricane. Because right now, those winds estimates are taken by plane. As the plane just nosedives, it's a hurricane plane, so it's built for this. to nosedive through the different areas of the eye wall and around the storm to try to measure every square inch that it can, given the ability to pick out the strongest winds. All right, so let's move on here. Let's see what else I want to show you. We'll start to monitor some of the flooding potential and stuff that happens here along the coastline. So I got a lot of different products for that. There are some gauges here, of course, that have already been flooded. Like here's, I didn't mean to click on that, but since I did, we'll do it anyway this way. So here you go. Let's see if you can read this. I'll make this bigger for you. Another tip for this is all in broadcast on Twitter, which goes through Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. And all of them are in 1080p HD, so you can pipe all of this mirrorcast it to your big screen television if you'd like. So you can see all these numbers a lot better and the data that I'm showing you a lot better, so you don't have to squint on your phone or tablet. So this particular gauge here along the coastline is already at 7.5 feet. So you can see that's major flooding. 6 feet is considered major flooding. The record is 10 feet flood stage. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the water is rising along the coastline. So again, if you're 5 feet tall, 6 feet tall, you're already underwater if you're on the coastline. So that's the issue there. All right. So that means any homes, even if they're on stilts, however they build the homes down there on the coastline, I'm not even for sure what materials they're using. The storm surge, if that doesn't get it, the wind will get it, the flooding will get it, all that kind of stuff. So it's just not good. Now, we mentioned the tornado situation, right? Okay, so what happens on a tornado? So I'm gonna draw a hurricane for you. Let's just say H for hurricane. Okay, so the best, it will draw it like a crosshair. So let me split it for you like this and like this, the quadrants as it moves. So we'll take the hurricane moving north. The best area for tornadoes is in that we call the front right quadrant of the storm. So as this hurricane moves to the north, like so, the front right quadrant is going to be to the right of its track. That is the best area for tornadoes. Now some of them will start here in the southeast quadrant, and then there will be some that kind of cross over into this northwest quadrant, just briefly. But usually there's never anything in the southwest quadrant. It's a nothing burger. Nothing usually happens down there. But so that's where most of the action happens on a hurricane, as far as the most destructive winds, just from the storm itself, due to the motion of the storm, the movement, and then the fact you've got to throw in these headachy tornadoes to go with it. Now, the brighter the colors indicates the stronger the threat for tornadoes in a particular area. So you see right now it's along the coastline. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to forward this through time. So this goes through midnight, and I'm going to go ahead and take it into tomorrow morning. Here we go. So 7 a.m. tomorrow. And you see, where is it? It's tracking along with the hurricane. It's going to be all across central and southern Louisiana, and starting to nudge into Arkansas as we go into the afternoon hours around lunchtime. It's now pressing into southern Arkansas, and into northeastern Louisiana. So tomorrow will be a tornado day in this part of the country, and they can form very quickly and at will. Let's see. Let's get some new data in here. All right, good. All right, so as we go on into past lunch to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6, 7, 7 o'clock, you see now they're in central Arkansas. We'll go to the later evening hours after that, and you see the threats kind of wind down. There's still a little bit of something on the map, but by far and large, the hurricane has lost a ton of its energy, a ton of its spin, a ton of its kinetic energy, potential energy, any kind of energy, right? A lot has been dumped along the way. So the threat for tornadoes will gradually weaken because the wind shear produced by the tornado will by the hurricane will gradually weaken as well. So there's your threat for tornadoes for tomorrow. Now, people to ask me, okay, we can get rain out of the storm for Oklahoma, for example. Well, let's show you the rain. Let's also show you the flooding and what you can expect for that. So here's a look at Thursday afternoon. So what you do see is southeast Oklahoma seeing a little bit of that shower and thunderstorm activity. Of course, the heavier stuff will be it's typically right along the path of the low and on the east side. The west side, sometimes on the immediate stage, you can get a little bit of wraparound, but otherwise you don't get too much on the left of the track. So that's why Oklahoma's not going to see a whole lot. Here you've got some stragglers. There's a What happens also in a hurricane is you have, of course, a lot of lift that's happened in this area. Well, you also get a lot of subsidence or sinking air. But every now and then you'll get between a column of a little moisture channel where you get a little bit of convergence, and there's usually back some more sinking air on the other side of that. So we might get some of these little isolated showers that pop up here over central and Oklahoma, but they're kind of like today. The ones that we had out there today, it's not going to be that big of a deal. All the main stuff, again, will be in Arkansas and Louisiana. But anyways, we're going to tomorrow evening. You can see how it kind of continues through Arkansas, the low pressure area on in through tomorrow night. So it's a fast moving system, right? So it's not going to hang along the coastline. It's not going to be a Harvey. It's not going to sit there and just, flood the towns or anything. It's going to be hit and then leave. Okay, so that was a look at that. Rainfall totals, just to give you an idea. These will all be model estimates, so there's going to be obviously some room for error. But down here, because of the quick movement, that's the good part. They got about 8 to maybe 10 inches of rain here in southwest Louisiana, because that's the track of the eye wall, so that makes the most sense. And along the state line. It's western side of Louisiana, and it slowly drops off basically by an inch. You go every 50 to 100 miles you go, you lose another inch. Until you're finally in Arkansas, and then it drops off to about an inch or so once you get into central Arkansas. So that's where all your flooding is going to be. Southwest Arkansas through far eastern Texas, and a good chunk of Louisiana for the heavy rainfall out of that. All right, let me move on. Let's see. The newest European, by the way, I'd posted a picture of this on Facebook around lunchtime, I think it was, of the landfall. And it had it a little too far east. And I said in there, I think it'll be more west. And the way the track was going at the time, it had made a turn to the north, and I was concerned it'd be more of a westerly track toward Port Arthur, I think it was, southeast of Beaumont. But because it turned to the north shortly after that post, of course, knock on wood, if I just waited a little while, it would have turned. Ended up making more of its jog to the north, so it looks like it's going to stay just east of the state line. But this model is also producing winds. I don't know if you see this on your map, but it says 160 knots. So we're looking at well over 180 miles per hour, close to 200. And this is in gusts, by the way. Now, I don't think that'll happen. This model has been a little too aggressive on the wind speeds, but it has at least led the way to what is potentially there for the wind speeds. Now, speaking of, let me show you this. This is the wind gusts. This is from the National Weather Service. They take a combination of the models and they produce what the maximum wind gust can be given the track of the storm. So we talk about hurricanes and hurricane force winds. We talk to them, of course, always about the coastline, right? We're always focused on the coast. And then everybody who lives inland goes, don't worry about it. I live 50 miles north. I'm fine. Well, in this particular case, these hurricane type force winds, look how far inland they go. All the way to Shreveport, basically. So when Shreveport, east of Shreveport, they die off to about 72 miles per hour. Die off to 72 miles per hour. You understanding that? So that's hurricane force winds all along this whole track. That is widespread damage. Trees, power lines. So this whole area that you basically see on the map, so I'll circle it for you, but again, from around Beaumont, right up here to just east of Shreveport, probably even some southwest Arkansas, down here to Lake Charles, this whole area without power, it'll be that way for weeks. It just depends on how fast crews can get to each individual area. So I know a lot of folks probably just went north a little bit to seek shelter from the hurricane. In this particular case, it's a very narrow path, narrow corridor, but it's going to be a catastrophic corridor as far as the outcome goes. Flash flood guidance. We kind of talked about the rainfall up to 6 inches or so. So that's kind of what this says during a very short period of time. So we'll skip on that for now. Let's see, same idea with this. Now that was just one model, by the way, I looked at. It did not include other models. So if you take a look at other models, and that was, a matter of fact, the very latest one. So I didn't have a chance to interrogate to see if it was out to lunch or not. I'll just use that as an example. This kind of a grouping through 48 hours indicates max of 12 inches along that same area. And then, of course, that northern corridor on up in Arkansas where it drops off to about 3 or 4 inches of rain by the time you head towards central northern Arkansas by Friday morning, Friday afternoon. So there's the biggest area of concern for rainfall totals. Again, you see in Oklahoma. Here, I'll zoom in for you a little bit. In Oklahoma and southeast sides of the state, there's a very tip of the state, McCurtain, the Floor, Broken Bow, those kind of areas, maybe about an inch or two. Otherwise, most of it all to the east. Dallas getting a little bit of rain, but again, mostly in Tyler, Shreveport, on down toward Bryan College Station. Then Houston, you guys will still get rain in Houston, and you'll get a little bit of a wind. Remember, we talked about those wind speeds. You're in the orange shading, so that's 50 to 55 mile per hour winds on the far east side of town, toward mainly in the Galveston Bay. So it's a very sharp cutoff. West side of Houston, in the far western Harris County, it's a gentle breeze. So it from one side of the county to the other is a big difference in wind speeds, about a 20 to 30 mile per hour jump. And then once you get out of the county line, from there eastward, just by a few miles, it goes right back into tropical storm force winds and hurricane winds, excessive hurricane winds by the time you get toward Beaumont. And that's not very far as the crow flies. For those of you folks that don't know, here, I'll show this to you. So this is Houston and Beaumont here on the screen. I will plot you a ruler. So we'll just take it to downtown Houston and make it easy, to downtown Beaumont. That's 75 miles. So that's not very far, right? So if we're talking about wind speeds that change dramatically from the east side of Houston to the east side of Galveston Bay, that's a 17-mile jot, and the winds go from there to there is almost hurricane force. Okay, and then from the east side of Galveston Bay to Beaumont, let's see, it's a 30-mile range, and 30 miles are going to go from near hurricane force winds to excessive hurricane force winds of 100 miles an hour. So that's what I'm saying. It's you guys in Houston have no idea how lucky you are, because what you're going to wake up to and see from Beaumont to Lake Charles, you would not want that outcome. It would cripple the entire city, Houston, Galveston, that whole area, for who knows how long. I mean, we could be talking years to rebuild and all that. So you just be thankful that it's just moved off to your east. Of course, people in Beaumont and Lake Charles don't like to hear that. There's refineries in here. That's a whole other problem. I don't know how well those refineries will hold up for a massive hurricane like this, but we'll find out. But it could be something that affects the energy sector for the U.S. So it's just never a good deal, bottom line. Okay, so one of the hurricane models had it, making landfall here, about the area we talked about. So that's old news now. Let's see here. Let me see what the latest is with this guy. It's got some pink on the map, 113. This is all new data. I'm just going to look at on the fly. So hang in there. So these reconnaissance flights are pretty cool. The data they're able to kick out and that we're able to actually show in real time. That's pretty neat. By the way, here are some of the key messages for Hurricane Laura from the National Hurricane Center. This is one of the key words that they kicked out earlier today around lunchtime, I think it was. Let's see here. Read this word for me. See that word? Unsurvivable. So as a meteorologist, for me, when I see Cat 4 or Cat 5 potential coming out of the storm, coming in a highly populated area, I think unsurvivable, right? Well, so do they, because they're meteorologists too. And they decided to put that in the strong wording on the coastline to make sure that people left at the very last minute that may have still been hanging by. So hopefully that was enough to get any stragglers out of there. But the point was, the storm surge with large and destructive waves can cause catastrophic damage from Sea Rim State Park, Texas, to Intracoastal City, Louisiana, including Calcasieu, I'm going to butcher that name, apologize, and Sabine Lakes. The surge could penetrate up to 40 miles inland from the immediate coastline. 40 miles. So remember how I tell you if you live a few miles up off the coast, thinking of a big deal, this one goes into 40 miles inland. Floodwaters will not fully recede for several days after the storm. That's point one. Point one's enough as it is, but we'll go to point two. Hurricane force winds are expected tonight in portions of the hurricane warning area. With catastrophic wind damage expected where Laura's eye wall moves on shore. Remember that eye wall's over 30 miles wide. Hurricane force winds and widespread damage wind gusts will spread it well inland into portions of extreme eastern Texas and western Louisiana early Thursday. So we showed you that as well. Widespread flash flooding is also an issue along small streams, urban areas, roadways expected to begin this afternoon from eastern Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas, which will lead to minor to moderate freshwater river flooding. Heavy rainfall threat and flash and urban flooding potential will spread northeastward into the middle Mississippi, lower Ohio, Tennessee valleys Friday night and Saturday. So in other words, just talking about the track itself, which is how it continues onward to produce rain along with it. Okay, so that was the latest look at that. Peak surge. So they've adjusted this. It's 10 to 15 feet now for Sea Rim State Park. Again, that's just south of Beaumont. Back into Galveston Bay, it's 2 to 4 feet, but in Port Boulevard is 6 to 9 feet. I may have mispronounced that. I think it's right, Boulevard. I can't read the font so small. Then from there, it's 15 to 20 feet from Johnson Bayou up toward Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. Drops off a bit to 10 to 15 feet from there. Intercoastal City, 8 to 12. Even some onshore flooding way down here in southeastern Louisiana. So again, that's another issue of concern. Let's see. So the surge is an issue. Of course, the flash flooding issue. Talking about the tornado threat. Of course, we know where it's been landfall. So for your reference, as far as what hurricanes, measure in, they focus more on the wind speeds now than they do the pressure. It was always a fight as to which is more important in the meteorological community. Is it the pressure? Is it the wind? Is it the pressure? Is it the wind? Because sometimes a hurricane would come in, the pressure would indicate one thing, but the wind says another, and the wind would say one thing, the pressure says another. And you're like, okay, well, who wins? How do we rate this thing? So because of that, I think they kind of focused on the wind speeds at this point. And right now, it's a good, strong Category 4. If we can get sustained winds up around 137 knots, then it will be officially a Category 5. And again, that's over 157 miles per hour. That doesn't include the gusts. Wind gusts can easily exceed that, no problem. Let's see. Now, when you kind of look at the damage that entails, so we're in the Category 4 and 5 section here, of 130 to 156 in the 4, and over 157 in the 5. Extreme damage to catastrophic damage, right? Now you're going, okay, what's kind of a breakdown of that? Well, for the extreme, a Cat 4, damage to houses, trees, power lines, places unlivable for weeks or months after. Usually means a lot of the roofs are ripped off or blown off. Especially as you get closer to a 5, houses can be just destroyed. The winds can lead to catastrophic damage to homes, trees, power lines. Power can be out for weeks, months, leaving those affected uninhabitable. So do you notice the difference in the wording? There wasn't much. In other words, once you get to that level of wind for that long period of time, 4 and a 5, there's not a huge difference between the two. So now I'm going to peruse one of the best things I have for weather at a very critical, fast-moving deal is I follow all these weather guys on Twitter, right? Because each one of them is a geek, and they post some of the geekiest stuff you would ever find, and I find it all. So everybody's got their own passion or niche and what they look at, and they update it. And so this is where Twitter shines. Otherwise, I actually hate the entire platform, to truth be honest. It's filled with trolls, angry mobs, cancel culture, people just complaining. And that I can totally do without, right? But the weather information on here is like a gold mine. So, for example, this just came in 1 minute ago, and this updates are so fast, so we can just talk about it on the fly. Let's see. So we talked about a flight level wind around 145 knots, but the SFMR is lower at 120. It says this particular pass doesn't justify Category 5 intensity, although the estimated mean sea level pressure continues to trend even lower, meaning that it's still right there on the cusp of being a Category 5 storm. All right, so that was one little bit of information. Let's see what old Phil has to say. He posted something 3 minutes ago. Talked about the ACE index for the hurricanes. What do you have before then? He talked about the pressure getting down to 937. This was interesting. Only 3 hurricanes on record since 1851 have made landfall in Louisiana with a central pressure of less than 937 hectopascals. Katrina, Last Island, which is the one I mentioned in 1856, and then Rita, 2005. So again, the lower the pressure, the lower the number equals the stronger the storm. It will not get lower than 920. I'm trying to think if there's even a possibility of getting lower than 920, or if there has been. I haven't gone back in my hurricane history to find out. But as far as what this, according to says, it's basically pretty close to the lowest that there is on record. All right, so let me go to that's a Hurricane Center. We'll see what they've posted. Sometimes their Twitter account's faster than their updated website. So here's a 9 o'clock update. We'll see what it says. Sustained wind, let's see, 45 is reported at Claremont, Vermillion Bay. Okay. The summary of the last hurricane information. Still got winds of 150 miles per hour, moving to the north-northwest at 15 miles per hour. So again, that fact that it's going north-northwest versus northwest is a huge difference maker in where it makes landfall. Again, it would go more toward the Texas side if it were to go to the northwest versus the Louisiana side if it goes north-northwest. All right. Let's see. Anything else that was about popular? We mentioned that earlier about tornadoes. And let's see what old Levi had to say. So Levi runs Tropical Tidbits, which his sites get slammed during tropical storm season when it comes to hurricanes, because every meteorologist loves it. So that's a little inside tip for you. If you really want to get into that stuff, and that's one of the best websites you can go to, Levi's Tropical Tidbits is it, because he posts some really cool stuff on there. Okay, so he just posted this 38 seconds ago. So the recon from 9:15, new Air Force plane just now arriving. Eastern eye wall remains as strong as it's ever been. No sign of weakening. Eye is now 60 miles from Cameron, Louisiana. Let's see, prior to that, nothing. Okay. So he's usually the first to jump on and say, hey, technically this is going to be a Category 5. He'll be the first to say it, or one of the first, because he watches this stuff like a hawk. All right. Now, as far as how Google looks, anybody who's going to leave, I'm sure, is already gone. You can see there's no green road networks, which means there's no traffic. It's probably vacant and barren. These roads here either closed from officials, is my guess. And that was new as of today. I don't know what time that happened. But again, there's no traffic tonight. So you'd never obviously want to try to leave at nighttime anyway during a hurricane. You might as well just stay put at that point. Let's see. I think that was it for that. Let me go back to the satellite view. This is the 1 minute update like we talked about earlier. It's just an impressive, beautiful thing to see. And then we're going to zoom in here on the radar again. Now the radar, you can sometimes see those little eddies spin up. So we'll see if we can't make any delineation in that. Yeah, you can. Interesting here. So the eye wall is has a little dry air entrainment in the southwest side, right here. So in this section here, it's not as filled in as it was before. Now this heavier convection will wrap back around here and protect it, but it's going to kind of close it off. And sometimes these storms can go through like they call an eye wall cycle that kind of disrupts them and weakens them a bit. Or it's called an eye wall replacement cycle. So there's a lot of things that happen within hurricane dynamics that they're still trying to figure out and learn. You can see here on the shoreline from Cameron over, and hopefully it's not Cameroon like in Africa, which is Cameron, but regardless, it's moving along the coastline. This big red box indicates tornado warnings are in that area. So here we go with that. So this is offshore, one there. This one's onshore, one there, one there, one there, and probably one there. So that's just kind of how they line up, and they just rotate through. Now, typically these aren't very strong, and it would be difficult to distinguish the damage from one of these types of tornadoes from just the hurricane itself sometimes. That's just the way it goes. Let's see, 53 outbound. Let's do this. Oops. Yeah, I'll do this. we got 60 miles per hour. Yeah, so these would be smaller tornadoes. Little, you have zeros, possibly you have one in that particular line. Let's see if we can't measure the speeds in the hurricane itself. We'll have to go to the other one because that's folded over. Let's see, this would never look better. Let me animate this. Hopefully this has been educational for you. I was going to say entertaining because I normally do entertaining stuff, but this isn't entertaining at all. But hopefully it's been educational for you as far as a little bit about hurricanes. I'm not going to profess to be the expert of hurricanes. I know tornadoes far better, and I know severe weather far better, and just synoptic forecasting far better. Hurricanes are their own entity, their own animal, their own breed. And like with anything in any profession, you can actually spend your entire life just on one thing. So you could spend your entire life on tornado research. You can spend your entire life on hurricane research and not know anything else about any other topic in meteorology other than what you remember from college, right? That's the same way it is as, for a doctor, depending on what they go to school for, what they want to decide to specialize in. Most of them are going into the beauty world, cosmetology, because it's easy money, and there's so many things out there now that can take 10 years off your face, and et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of them are dabbling into that, even though they would have never gone there from medical school. Okay, so these winds are still up around where they were before, over 140 miles an hour. As it gets closer, we'll get better measurements here on this guy, because it's still not going to get the best measurement yet, but we're getting there. Like I said, I think there were 60 miles offshore at this point. Let's see here. So this tornado warning goes until 9:45, another 15 more minutes. Storm motion northwest at 58 miles per hour. Could you imagine a tornado moving at you at 58 miles per hour? Do you know how much time you would not have to get ready for that? That's why I tell you need my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. So what happens is it has proprietary systems. No other app can do this. So it's got a proprietary system. Think of it like a kitchen sink formula, where it takes in the high-resolution model data, high-resolution radar data, takes in all the historical and research-based information that's been learned and put out, and then takes a look at the storm, tracks the circulation centers, and then notifies you and says, hey, here's a twisting storm alert, and it gives you a scale, on a scale of like a 1 to 10. So typically when it's a 1 or 2 or 3, it just means there's some rotation there, but it's not enough probably to produce a tornado. When it gets to the 4, 5, and 6, it's like, yeah, you better, it gets your attention. You want to pay close attention to it. You might even want to think about just go ahead and get in shelter. And then when it's over basically 7, 8, 9, 10, that's a confidence level of, yep, you got a tornado coming at you. I suggest you seek shelter now. Now that's what comes out first. Then, typically on the scale from 3 minutes later, 5 minutes later, you'll get an official warning from the National Weather Service. And so that warning will come out. And sometimes that warning won't come out for 10 or 15 minutes later, depending on how things evolve. So what my app is designed to do is to give you as much lead time as possible before that official warning comes out, to give you more time to prepare. Because when you only have seconds to prepare for a tornado coming at you, and all of a sudden you got 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 or even 20 minutes, that's a lifesaver. You can do so much in that period of time. So that's what my app is designed for. So if you want to try that out during this hurricane season, it's called AT's Weather to Go. It's basically AT's Weather, but I put the to go on there because you can take it with you. And it's really long to say to take it with you on a mobile app deal, so I just got it off to go, like you're taking food out. So you can search AT's Weather in Apple or Google Play, download it. You can put locations in there for anything you want to keep track of, vacation homes, work, school. You got kids in different areas of the country or whatever. You can put their address in for all of those. It'll warn you for each of those specific locations. It's a very specific warning app. So it'll only notify you if you're going to be affected. In other words, say you live in a big county, it's not going to tell you the whole county is under a tornado warning. It's not how that works. It'll tell you if you're in the path of the tornado. So it acts much different than most of those generic weather apps you got out there. So try it out. If you want to use it for the hurricane season, especially this one, and then afterwards, take it off because, all right, thanks for that, appreciate it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It's free. It's for your safety. So I put it out there for everybody to use. So that is the latest, and that is the latest with the tornado aspect of it. Let me think here. So that's all I got for you for now. 9:30. So we've been on for an hour. I think it's been about an hour. Yeah, close to an hour, 50 minutes. Trying to think. We are in an active hurricane season. Typically, it goes through. It's basically the first week of November, and then it kind of shuts off real quick. Usually, historically, sometimes it shuts off way before then. But this year, this latter part of the year, seems to be very active. We got a pretty active wave train coming off the African coastline. So I do expect to have more threats to the U.S. for hurricanes, and the next one might be the East Coast coming up later on. But that's in the distance, and no need to worry about that now. First off, they actually have to form, and then the models have to actually have a clue what they're talking about, and yada yada yada. And as you've known from this one, hurricane forecasting is not easy. Tornado forecasting actually. We can do pretty good within 24 hours. Some will still blow it, even in that 24-hour window. But most of them are done pretty well. And the benefit of that is you have a lot more chances to get it right and to learn from it than you do hurricanes. A hurricane like this is once in a blue moon. If you don't get it right, well, you're going to have to wait another 10, 20 years for the next one, right? Whereas a tornado, if you missed this one, there's another one right around the corner. You can learn from that one. More research, more instrumentation, more papers, This one will be studied, obviously, very thoroughly. In the model game, it was a mix. Usually, the European model is king when it comes to most things in forecasting, including hurricane landfall. However, the American model seems to do better at predicting the initial development of the potential hurricane storm. The problem is it has a false alarm ratio very high, so it just loves to do that. Whereas the European will wait until it's too late and it's already happened, kind of a deal almost. So there's room for improvement on both models for that. One's too aggressive, one's not aggressive enough. Then it goes through the islands like it did, through Cuba and Puerto Rico and that whole area. It tore them up, and the models having a tough time deciding, okay, are they going through the islands, are they going north, are they going south, because that'll affect the final pattern, the final direction and the path and all that. And they struggled with that. The GFS did better, so the American model did better. And then the European finally got caught on once it got off the island. This is, okay, I got this now. Thanks, GFS. I'll take it from here. And it ramped up, and it brought the storm the farthest west of all the models. Right? Then all the models are way east, including the GFS. So all the other models, the tracks are horrible. Then they started to converge. So the European held its ground, says, no, I'm pretty much going to go right through the Houston area. Now, it has a wide cone. That was just the center part of the cone. In other words, it had some west, some east, but that was the center baseline. Whereas, say, the GFS, whatever was over here in the eastern sides of Louisiana, had to keep coming west, come west, come west, and then the other models would come west. So it looked like they're all going to kind of converge to the European. But then they put the brakes on at the state line. And the Europeans started going, okay, fine, I'm going to join the rest of you. And they came to the state line. So eventually all converged right over the state line of Texas and Louisiana. But that didn't happen until about 24 hours away from landfall. So as an emergency official, meteorologist, whatever, if your goal is to get the earliest and most accurate forecast you can, that's difficult, right? And there are implications in everything you say. So if you tell the wrong people to take shelter, what good does that do, right? And then how much do you need to tell them to get them moved, to act? Because people are procrastinators. I believe you want to see it. They'll wait till the last minute, and then the roads are jammed, or they didn't prepare, they don't have any water on the road, and then things can happen outside of their control that could lead to whatever, So there's panic involved, there's disconnect, there's just a lot of things that can go wrong. As a meteorologist, you can't worry yourself too much about that part of it, because you have to focus on the data part and what message are you going to send. Is this a dangerous situation or is it not a dangerous situation? Okay, is it? Yes. How bad? Okay, then you put that in a category. Now it's like, I'm a communicator. How do I want to word this message? Do you do it with emphasis so that you get action? Or do you just go, well, it could do this and it could do that? No, you'll get no action. If you do give action, you give it early, and you're just a little off, and you're not perfect, you'll face ridicule. And people try to discredit you. And people say, you guys stink at your job, and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And what you're trying to do is to help them. You're trying to help the person that's laughing the gifted horse in the mouth. So it's a frustrating place to be. So you have to separate yourself from that side of the emotional spectrum. Once people go through either a highly emotional response, anxiety, where there is a cognitive disconnect, there's no prefrontal cortex action, and it's all rage and misplaced anxiety or anger or frustration, that doesn't serve anyone any good, right? So even as me as a forecaster, when I see that, in one ear and out the other. I don't have time for that. It doesn't do me any good. A lot of people, for whatever reason, they will spend their time griping on social media when they could be planning. They could be going, okay, what's our plans, family? How long are we going to wait? And when we do wait, what's the final time we can't wait any longer before we have to make a decision? Do we have things together? Have we gone to the store lately? Are the stores already barren? First come, first serve. So do we want to act now, or do we want to procrastinate and wait till tomorrow and laugh at the weatherman today and then all of a sudden realize they were right tomorrow? Or do we want to just go ahead, you know what? Let's just not take our chances and let's act now. So there's a lot of things that critical cognitive thinking needs to take shape in the early stages of this, so that when a forecast is put out, that's the reaction you get. It's not the, let me go troll this person, because that's serving no one any good. Because it turns out, yeah, the meteorologist could get it wrong, and by wrong, meaning could miss the mark by 60 miles, and your house is completely safe. And then, of course, the person that's just east of you is decimated. And you're going to be all happy and gloating about that. Now, you would have to think, well, that's pretty messed up, because now you're happy that the guy next to you got leveled because you're safe, so the meteorologist stinks. And so that's why there's always some uncertainty built into this, and there's always going to be a little cushion, a margin of error. So when you see a hurricane forecast, there's a cone of error. The error is not only for human input, but it's also for historical climatological error bars from prior storms. So it's a complicated formula of how that's drawn, but it's because you don't let your guard down if you're within that zone, because like I said, sometimes the storm can wobble a little too much, and that affects the path. It can undergo some eye wall replacement cycles, and that can change intensity, can change the speed, and things can be off just a little bit. So no model is infallible, and no forecaster is infallible. There's going to be mistakes, and there's going to be best guesses, kind of like in medicine. They say they're practicing medicine when they put you under. Well, the weather is not an exact science. It's an inexact science, meaning we don't know everything. We know a lot, enough to do what we do right now, which is pretty darn good. I think it might take AI to take us to the next level, artificial intelligence, to maybe figure out some things that we haven't seen or don't see. And that's machine learning. That's going to be an interesting field. I think that'll probably be in the next, 50 years. That process, if we're all still around, of course, by then. In that 50 years, maybe even 25, the way things are going, the computer computational world, we may see some dramatic advancements in the weather industry, which would be awesome for me to see before I move on. But that's just, something else out there that kind of pass along my thoughts for you. Something you don't get from the nightly news, because there's no time to really talk about any of that kind of stuff. Let's see. Anything last? Check out this. Let me see here. I can see if there's another update before I let you go from the Hurricane Center, so hold on. Let me load that up. I got so many things open. Okay, so read the public advisory. That's the 7 o'clock one. Okay. I can read this advisory. We didn't read, I just gave you the shorthand version. But it's basically the watches and warnings from a storm surge from Freeport, Texas to the mouth of Mississippi. Then you have the hurricane warning from St. Louis Pass to Intracoastal City, Louisiana. You have the tropical storm force warning on top of that from Sargent, Texas to San Luis Pass rather. And then you have east of the Intracoastal City, Louisiana to the mouth of Mississippi. You got a hurricane watch. So the whole coastlines are just inundated with advisories. Storm surge warning means there's a danger of life-threatening inundation from rising water moving inland from the coastline to the indicating locations. For a depiction of areas at risk, please see the graphic that we have. This is a life-threatening situation. Persons located within these areas should take all necessary actions to protect life and property from rising water and the potential for other dangerous conditions. Of course, it says promptly follow evacuation and other instructions from local officials, but by this point, all that's over, said and done. Hurricane warning means that hurricane conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area. Notice how they still, at the 7 p.m. hour, the storm making landfall here in a couple hours, it still says hurricane warning means that hurricane conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area. So whenever we talk about an inexact science and we do our best to draw all these fancy boxes and paths and all that stuff, there's still going to be room for a few errors in there. Where, you might be in the center of the hurricane, but maybe for whatever reason, you didn't get hit that bad. And then you can look to your left and look to your right, and there's nothing left standing. Almost kind of like being in a tornado. That can happen sometimes in tornado events. It's the craziest thing. You can have house to your right and left decimated, your house barely touched, or maybe it is damaged, but then you've got a doll sitting in the middle of the fireplace shelf that didn't even move an inch. It's just some of the craziest thing you can see when it comes to these types of storms. So let's see. I'm just kind of glancing through this. This isn't anything new, really, to read to you. I kind of already gave it all to you. Showed you all the stuff associated with it, so I'm just going to let it go for now. But I was hoping to get some last minute updated information before I let you go, so I'm going to see if these guys on Twitter found anything in the last couple of minutes. 41 seconds ago, that'll do. Good timing for that one. Latest drop zone shows a higher minimum mean sea level pressure in the past for the first time so far today. So it looks like the storm then has stopped the intensification, and it likely will not reach Category 5 strength by a hair. So this is the pressure right here at the top going down with time. So it started out high. Remember, low pressure stronger, got down to 937 millibars, just a couple shy of the Category 5 level, and then back up to 939. So that means it may end up holding at this kind of a strength. It was a very strong Category 4 before hitting landfall. Let's see. That's what that pressure chart shows. Okay, nothing from him. Let's check the Hurricane Center. Nope, nothing there. Man, if I was the Hurricane Center, I'd have a social media person in there tweeting out like every 10 minutes something new. That's the one thing the government's just hasn't quite mastered is social media. They just can't quite grasp the importance of it yet when it comes to disseminating this kind of stuff. And that includes not only the weather aspect, but that's all government. That's just government's a laughing stock anyway. I mean it's a joke on a lot of stuff that happens, but that even goes for social media on the important stuff. Having a slew of experts but whatever. That's a whole other topic. Let's see, recon. Let's see, it's old 22 minutes. Okay, so that's it. So there's nothing new to pass on here, other than the fact we're just going to wait for the thing to make landfall. It's not far from Cameron. It's getting about 50 miles, 45 miles away from the shoreline. So by midnight, the eye wall should be getting close to the shoreline there in southwest Louisiana. All I can say at this point, just pray for those folks. They do get hit. There's going to be some situations where it's not even recognizable. There's going to be a lot of devastation, destruction. There was let me look at this real quick, just for tornado purposes. Weather Service just put this out from Lake Charles. This is one of the stronger tornado signatures I've seen. Tornado warning for northeastern Cameron, Parish, south central Jefferson, southwestern Vermillion Parish, damaging tornado located 10 miles northeast of Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge, moving northwest at 65 miles per hour. So let's take a look at that. Tornado will be near let's see, Lacassine National Wildlife Refuge around 10, Hayes and Gibston around 10:05, Hackett's Corner, Sweet Lake around 10:10, Homewood around 10:15. A repeated tornado is on the ground. Take cover now. Okay, so here's a look at that circulation center right here. So it's a very strong circulation center compared to the ones we were tracking earlier. Let's see, that's good grief. That's 121 mile per hour inbound and 35 outbound. So that's definitely a strong, very strong tornado. Let's see what else we got here. So there's a rotation track for it. There's the line. And of course, this is over marshland, thank goodness. So this isn't anything too populated. The tiles are loading now. So we'll see if there's any structures at least in the way. While that's doing that, let me go over here and plot, I believe it was this guy here. Lake Charles at 10:26, Preen at 10:26 as well. So that's when that particular tornado would arrive. Now Lake Charles, this is actually the center of where the radar is located. So if that next radar system goes down, that's not a good thing, just for the record. I'm going to load up another radar that'll take a look at the terminal Doppler weather radar and we'll see. Okay, so over here the tiles are loaded. Let's see, just marshland. Not any. Still. Here we go. Come on, load up. Get in there. There we go. Had to get some new imagery loaded. Still marshland. Good, good, good. So the immediate path of this, no farmland, no any structures. Looks like no homes. So that's good. Because that's like a pretty big tornado on radar. Like pretty strong to me. Okay, so let's see what else. I was going to load this one up. Let's see what happens. LA. Oh, yeah, it'll be too far away. That other radar is located in New Orleans, so it's not going to see it. Okay. Oh, never mind. Alrighty. Well, that's an example of how those tornadoes can spin up and in that particular case become quite strong. Let's pop this guy up and see something. I think this radar hasn't updated. Yeah. All right, I gotta work on that one. The site information for that one went offline for some reason. Okay, anyway, so we tracked that one tornado. It's out in the middle of nowhere, which is good. Eventually, though, it'll head its way, if it holds on, moving at 65 miles an hour. That's going to make up a lot of ground really quick. It would be over here in this, where the radar is located. Let me turn the radar off. So you do have a lot more, looks like homes or at least farmhouses once it gets to the end of this path. So hopefully by then it'll lift. They usually don't last that long, the ones that are spawned by the hurricanes. So that's the good news as well, even if they are kind of strong. Typically, they're short-lived because there's usually so many of them. It's a constant chaotic state in these little bands. so much shear. It's almost like they ripped apart. But that would be the tornado band, and you can take this band, this image. So we'll do this here. So this band here, again, is where the tornado is located, and then you shift it north with time overnight. So that means all these folks in here are going to be having nighttime tornadoes. Now, nighttime tornadoes are a horrible thing to deal with. You never want to deal with a nighttime tornado, ever. It is the scariest, most unsettling thing. It's like anything in the dark. When you have no reference points, you can't see anything coming or going. That's just not one of those things you want to put in that environment. So again, my weather app, AT's Weather to Go, will keep you covered from that. That thing goes off. Also, you need to have a NOAA weather radio. I always recommend several ways to get weather backups. So the phone apps are good. Obviously, the TV's good if your weather guys are any good in your market. I'm sorry, but a lot of TV weather guys are horrible what they do. Some of them aren't even meteorologists. I got no control over that. It's just a function of their schooling, education, post, after, then, what level it was at, if they even learned anything about radar meteorology, storm dynamics, tornadoes, whatever. It's each person's individual. And sometimes you get stuck with someone and you just, poor thing, just can't can't quite get it. And there's others that are rock stars. Hopefully you're in a place that you have rock stars. Oklahoma City, I don't say almost all of them, but many of them are rock stars when it comes to that, because in this market you have to be. Tulsa's pretty decent too. So, but I've seen some other places in the country, and it's just sad. It's just no offense on the person in general. It's just, like I said, if you're not used to that specialty, and then you're inundated in that specialty, it's like the doctor going, I think I'm going to try some of this face stuff, and here, let me get this needle and shoot you up over here. Oh, I clipped a nerve. Oh, I didn't know anything about that, but I figured it'd be easy because I'm a doctor. It's one of those deals. Get what you pay for sometimes in those deals. All right, so that's the news there. So nothing new to add to that. We'll just, as these things come on inland and start to actually affect homes and people in the path and communities, those that kind of took shelter north of I-10, kind of hung around, but they weren't on the coast. I thought they'd be okay. Those are the ones that are going to have to deal with this stuff for tonight. All right, listen, hey, thanks for watching. I didn't know how long I was going to go tonight. You guys hung in there for quite a while. Been on there for over an hour, and I may come back on later. I'll just kind of watch things a little bit behind the scenes, do some other stuff around the house. But if there's a reason to come on, I might. If not, then I might do a couple updates tomorrow. Just kind of, unfortunately, retweet some images that none of us want to see, that kind of deal. Because when daylight comes after this, it's never a good sight. That's about it. So I appreciate you guys watching, your support, both financially and just by using the weather app or just liking me on social media. As always, tap the bell on YouTube, the little bell notifier on Twitter, Facebook, get notified when I go live. Click all that, because between the three platforms, you'll be notified when I go live typically. Here pretty soon, I'm going to give you a way to opt in, where I'll notify you when I go live personally. That way you don't have to depend on the algorithms to just randomly let you know. So if you really want to know when I go live, I'll let you sign up for that. So I'll be sending that out here soon. Let's see. Mention my weather app. I got had some bugs I had worked out on the video. It was a video card issue. I updated this whole system. Windows pushes out those updates to 10, and it updated my system to 10, and it ruined my my graphics card hack that I had going to be able to broadcast multiple streams at once. And I didn't know it, of course, and I was having trouble. I was like, why is this not working all of a sudden? Nothing's changed. I'm like, wait a minute, Windows updated. That shouldn't have done it. And I went and looked at it, and technically it shouldn't have, but something it did. And so I had to completely redo what I did before to hack my own system to get it to work. And so I did. So the reason why I do that is because there are services where I can stream out to just one third-party entity, and that will take that stream and then restream it out to unlimited sources. In weather, You don't want that because there's a latency with that. There's a lag, and that lag can be anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, depending on what program you're using, what platform, and also that kind of stuff. Well, if you're tracking tornadoes and all that kind of stuff, ain't nobody got time for that. 30 seconds can mean a big deal. A minute can be a huge deal. So I do it all myself, so it's straight, raw, right to you as fast as possible. So by doing that, I have to hack my own graphics card, which is a high-end card, believe it or not, but they restrict it because they're punks. And so guys like me don't like being told what to do on the technical side, which is why I have an Android and not an iPhone. I can't stand Apple. So I will hack anything that can be hacked to make it work better for me. So anyway, so that's an example of how I do that, so I can do this broadcast and reach so many of you on so many platforms. And I can add more if we come across a platform that a lot of you gravitate toward. Obviously, the whole social media spectrum is all up in arms with all the censorship and this group complaining and this group complaining and these people hate these people. I just like, would everybody just behave and just leave it all alone so we can all just do our jobs on it, and quit, making people mad because they leave the platform. If they leave the platform, I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to find the people that I need to reach? Because they're not on this one anymore. They've all gone to this one, and then they get run off of that one. Then they got to go to this one. It's like herding goats. What is it? Herding cats? I don't know what the saying is. Anyway, it can be frustrating as a content creator. So to try to get all you guys on one platform is impossible. So I got to find all these different ones. So, but if one comes up that's more popular, I think Parler kind of kicked off there because Twitter pissed off half their followers, so they all went to Parler. So I don't think you can broadcast live on Parler yet for live video, but if that were to happen, maybe I'll throw that in later if enough of you are on that one. I'm not sure what else is out there that's growing yet, and there might be some other ways to do this than the current anyhow. So I'm always looking at what's out there. So if you got some tips for me and you're still watching and you can foresee the future of social media reach, send me a private message and let me know, and I'll check into it. All right, well, I'm out of here for now. Appreciate you guys your time, and hope you enjoyed this live hurricane coverage of Hurricane Laura. And like I said, I'll kind of watch things. If it gets real out of control, maybe for tornadoes or something or whatever, I may get on again. But otherwise, I do plan on going to sleep tonight and then kind of seeing, unfortunately, what's kind of happen tomorrow. You guys take care. Appreciate you. Oh, and if you'd like, you can sponsor me through a Facebook fan subscriptions or Patreon, or even YouTube now has an option there for YouTube fan subscriptions. So there's many ways you can donate, like basically a cup of coffee a month. So it helps fund what I do here with all the expenses that go along with it. So that'd be helpful. But that's it. Okay. Good night, guys.